Hello and welcome to the Charm to Life podcast. This podcast is all about magic, metaphysics, mysticism, and the unconditional love of the universe. And I am your host. My name is Tricia Carr. As we head into this episode, which is packed full of really cool stuff, y'all, I gotta say, I want to invite you to please, tap that follow button or subscribe button on your podcast, whatever it is, whatever your podcast platform it has. I mean, on Apple, it says follow, I think. They used to say subscribe, and yeah. So I would love for you to actually follow it so you get the notifications for when the new episodes come out. And then, of course, I would love to invite you to scroll down in your podcast app and leave a review. That will help so much. In addition to that, if you would share it, that would be fantastic. I have so many really cool guests coming on, and then I love to pepper in the solo episodes where I'm teaching on something that I have channeled, something I'm channeling right now. And there's a lot of those coming up. A lot of both coming up, I have to say. So, I do post at least one episode per week. So we would love to have you here, a part of this regularly. And I know many of you already are. So thank you so very much. With that said, I want to share with you also the YouTube channel where I'm posting excerpts of some of these podcasts as well as many other, things that I'm teaching, downloading. I go live there. I'm multi-streaming. And so you can find the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Tricia Carr. And then my Instagram at Tricia Carr Charm. So this is a conversation episode. I have on my guest Amirah Hall, and it's spelled Amirah, like a miracle, only we took off the "kl" and we just put an H. Amirah is an international spirit medium and a world-class psychic mentor, intuitive life coach, author, and quantum healing pioneer. For the past 22 years, Amirah has dedicated herself to providing profound insights, spiritual tools, and guidance to seekers who are going through their ascension process. After healing herself of an autoimmune illness and after having a near-death experience while traveling in Egypt, and we talk all about that in this episode. Along with being the creator of a couple of really fantastic programs. One is called Reveal, a chakra healing intensive program, and another is called Intuitive Mastery Training and Intuitive Mastery Third Eye and Beyond. And these programs assist people in mastering life on every level. And she has a new book. It's called The Essential Guide to Spiritual Awakening, What I Learned from My NDE, Near-Death Experience. And she is also talks about in this episode that there is an upcoming hosted Sacred Journey trip to Egypt in October of 2022. So we get into a lot of stuff, and I just enjoy her heart, I enjoy her groundedness, and I enjoy her vision. So with that, I welcome you to this conversation with Amirah Hall, and I will chat with you on the other side. Well, Amirah, it's so great to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited to hear all about your work and your story. I love NDEs. So with all of that excitement that I'm bringing to it, I would just love to let you have the floor. Tell everyone about your journey, about the work that you do, all of it. We want to hear about you.
Well, thank you, Tricia. Thank you so much for shining the light and holding the space for so many people on their journey. I really applaud you and honor that. So thanks. I was reflecting on my own journey, and I didn't plan for this like most of us, I guess. I was in the corporate world. I was working in sales and marketing, and I was at a point, there were lots of ups and downs and movement along the way that started before that. But this actually catapulted me, I think, into the biggest phase of my spiritual awakening. And that was, I was yearning for something more. I knew that as I was becoming more and more successful and I had more disposable income, there was something missing. And so that's what spurred me into looking for something outside. And I thought it was a spiritual journey. And that's when I found information of a group that was going to Egypt. And my curiosity was piqued, and I thought, yeah, that's it. So away I went on this journey, a spiritual pilgrimage to Egypt. And I've always been a seeker, I guess. I've always been interested in the unseen world. I was raised Catholic. There wasn't a whole lot of information in the libraries, the school libraries. And so, it finally dawned on me that I had to go outside of my zone to access any of this information. I had a marvelous magical trip to Egypt. And from visions, from hearing, celestial angels, to synchronicities, to creating magical moments along the way. I mean, it was just jam-packed. I mean, if anybody's interested in, sort of disseminating all of what you've learned or accessing even more, Egypt is a place, definitely.
Yeah. Very magical.
Have you been yourself?
No, not in the body.
Okay, not in the body. Yeah, you come from a long lineage of priestesses, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I'm planning a spiritual journey to Egypt. I'm taking a group this October.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's really opening up. Anyway, that's a whole nother, segue, but Egypt is a magical place as we
Yes.
connect with our lineage, with previous lifetimes, and step into a greater sense of who we are and who we're not. I mean, it certainly rattled my cage in terms of, wow, I thought things were solid, and all of a sudden it feels like you walk through a column or walk into a space that is moving when you're standing on firm ground. So
Wow.
lots of magic. Yeah, so at the end of my stay, I was I'm always hesitant at this part because I did something that I wouldn't normally do. And I was buying beads, that's not the part, but I was making jewelry at the time, and I wanted some antiquities for my jewelry making. I found friends of a friend that had access to some pieces, and I went back to buy them. Well, in Egypt, when you buy something, especially if you know them, there's there's a sort of a little ritual. You sit and you visit and you drink some coffee and you talk and you actually engage in conversation and get to know each other.
That does not happen in Los Angeles. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, no, I just left Southern California. I can tell you, this is very novel.
It's
And
different.
you visit, you get to know each other a little bit. There's really a heart connection. Then you pay. Well, I had paid, and they brought out a joint. And I said, thank you, but I don't smoke. And I don't smoke cigarettes, and I didn't smoke anything else. Anyway, they erupted in just, I insulted them.
Oh,
Okay. I refused their offer of gratitude, and I wasn't being unkind, but they were just insulted. So
whoa.
Muhammad was screaming and yelling, and I was getting afraid, like I'm the only female. It was my first journey to Egypt. I didn't understand all of the cultural nuances. And so he kept saying, it's the best, and he was shouting, and I'm like, oh gosh, well, I've tried it before and it really didn't do much for me. So this is my logic. It's like, well, if I just, be polite and acquiesce, and we'll be on our way. Well, it didn't work like that.
Do they? I'm like, I would be in trouble if they offered me bread because I can't eat gluten.
Well, yeah.
I'd be in trouble.
Oh,
I'd be in
yeah.
trouble probably.
Well, and they start to understand, like for Westerners, when I'm on a tour, we advise our participants not to eat anything that's not cooked or peeled.
Sure, yeah.
Okay,
Because we don't have the same enzymes for the foods there, of course.
Our gut biome is quite different, and we don't want anybody sick and ruin the trip for them, right? We want to stay safe and within some, reasonable parameters. So anyway, there I was alone. My guides, we had separated a week before. So I acquiesced. the joint went around twice, and there was a circle of about 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
So for anybody listening, that's not much for each person.
Right. If it's a small one, sure. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it wasn't a great big cigar
Yeah.
doobie. And so what happened was everybody bounced up and they were ready to rock and roll and leave the we were in a small factory. I couldn't get out of the chair.
Mm.
What happened was I started to notice I was standing behind myself. I
Oh,
could see myself sitting in the chair, and I could see everybody and everything moving in slow motion. And I could see it was almost like a life review for everybody else in the room.
whoa.
And so it was overwhelming for me. But again, I was like having this conversation behind myself and watching and trying to stay in my body. I asked for some water, and my friend Juju walked towards me, opened a bottle of water and poured it in my hand. I remember bringing it towards my face, and I remember thinking, oh shit, my mascara's gonna run. This was literally the last thought. And then everything went black.
Oh,
They explained to me later that they had dragged me out from under the arms out to the outside. They called her for a taxi, which is a pickup truck. They perched me in the pickup truck with my head perched outside the window, barreling down the road to give me oxygen. Now, keep in mind, I'm at the Valley of the Kings outside Luxor. It was rather primitive.
mhm.
And so things were extremely rustic and not all the, makings of modern civilization. Um, so what happened was where I remember the next part is I was shooting through the cosmos like a shooting star.
Oh,
And I didn't know where I was headed. It was just like, if you can imagine, like just seeing stars everywhere
yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
black.
I
That's what
meditate that way a lot. I actually do that a lot in my meditation,
so
and
you
it's
left the
wonderful.
body. Yeah, you
Yes, yes,
leave your body.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
So I was coming back. I was seeing Earth,
Mm-hmm.
and I could see it way off in the distance, a small little ball. And I kept getting closer and closer, and it kept getting bigger and bigger. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know where I left myself.
It's a big
And
earth.
especially as you get close, yeah, zoom in. And then I heard a language that I didn't recall. And then I realized, oh, I left myself in Egypt, came back to the body, struggled for what felt like eons, trying to get back in my body, felt like putting on. Have you ever tried on a wetsuit
Yes,
or
yes.
wet clothes and how
Oh, it was
sticky
too
and
tight.
icky? Yeah. And it's cold and it's awful.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's a struggle. So that's the best metaphor that I can use to
Mm,
explain how either far out I was or how difficult it was to bring down my energy
mm.
to, connect into the physical dimension.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, it didn't really finalize for hours later.
Mm-hmm.
So at that moment, I mean, the actual experience when I could sense and try to open my eyes and the light was bright, and I would touch my friend's arm who was sitting next to me, and they all jumped like they were just freaked out that I had come back, and they fully informed me that I died.
Wow.
Later on, he told me my heart stopped, my breathing stopped. He was
Oh.
pounding on my chest with all his might. I call that Egyptian CPR. And out for oxygen. He even asked me, he said, "Doesn't your chest hurt?" And I go, "No." Later I checked for bruising. There was nothing. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was me trying to get back in the body. Later, I just needed a toilet because my
Mm-hmm.
gut was ready to explode. I said, "Where are you taking me?" "To the hospital," he said. Well, I knew I just needed a toilet. Now that
Mm-hmm.
again was a problem because we're in the Valley of the Kings in a very primitive little town.
Mm-hmm.
There was no Western toilets. there was no bathrooms that look like what we know.
Yeah.
So they brought me to his brother's flat, and there I could, you know, release myself. And then that's where he just sat there and cried and cried and cried and said, "You don't understand." He said, "You died."
Wow.
But that to me is the jumping off point, because when I was laying in the bed, I couldn't walk for a couple hours. I couldn't, like, I wasn't all there. So some people might say, you were really stoned and you were hallucinating, but it was marijuana. I
And there
don't
was
know
nothing else? Nothing else. They did,
that I can't,
we don't know
say.
for sure,
They
but
just
that's
kept
what.
saying it's the best. I guess Egyptian pot is like supersonic, it sends you into another orbit. But that to me, I was completely inexperienced. And this was back in
Mhm,
1998, right?
mhm.
So there was no reference point for me. I did get my body tested, went to the doctor. They told me that, I had been fasting and detoxed
Mhm.
before my journey. They said, your amino acids are low and you could have been dehydrated. He goes,
Yeah.
more people die from dehydration.
Mhm.
And then triggered with the pot, and having had 2 weeks of super off the charts spiritual experiences,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
hypersensitive.
Right. I can't, I can't do THC, because it makes me actually, it opens up my energy centers too much, and
Yeah,
I can see the fourth dimension as well as I can see the third dimension. And it's like all of my, the way I describe it is like all of my nerve endings are puking. That's what
yeah,
it feels like. It's too much for me. And I've even had it happened to me the last time it happened to me where it was psychoactive and that profound. I didn't die. My friend had given me some CBD honey that was not supposed to have THC and it was not psychoactive. And I had like a tenth of the amount that he normally takes. And, but I've heard that apparently CBD can be psychoactive as well. So, yeah, I mean,
well,
we,
those are great explanations for what happened to me. All I know
yeah,
is my world stopped
yeah,
and I was not the same. And
yeah,
yes, I did super blast open my
yeah.
pineal and the
Hmm.
crown chakra, because
Yep.
what happened when I got to LA, or not LA, New York, I had to fly that day. But
Hmm.
when I got to the New York airport and getting off the jetway, all I could see was walking black and white paper dolls.
Oh
So I
gosh.
was stuck in a dimension
Hmm.
or a realm of anger and fear, a very low vibration.
That's I mean, no, 4D, it has, and I know you know this, I'm just saying for everyone. The fourth dimension is really like it's a thought form reality, it's a thought and feeling scape. There's, mundane stuff there, there's earthbounds there, but there's also just disjointed, disoriented, static, messed up crap that just, and it's not just from humans, it's from it's interdimensional. It's basically a portal. It's not a place that we just chill. And so
Well,
your
yeah.
body had reacclimated to paying more attention to the third dimension than anything else.
And keep in mind, this was in 1998.
Hmm.
There
And
was
so we didn't.
no, there was no research. There was none of this
Mhm.
information or access. When I started going to different psychics and healers, trying to find out what happened to me, I knew I was radically different. I didn't dare go see a psychologist because I'm thinking
Oh
they're going
yeah.
to lock me up and throw away the key, right? Hearing
Hmm.
voices and seeing things.
Yeah.
But what I realized was I was living in the land of those paper dolls. I was,
Hmm.
as much as everybody else, in this reality. I had to step down, and I was walking in that realm. And I think the next year and a half, not quite that long, but it was about a year before I realized that I'm here to access my gifts and be able to manage them,
Yeah.
turn back the chakra system,
Hmm.
and clear the gunk that was, just hanging out, so that I could step beyond that.
Yeah.
And I always caution people when they're doing any kind of drugs, because
Right.
you're experimenting. This is Russian roulette, you
It
know.
is. And I know that plant medicine, as it's referred to, can be, there are certain people I would say it is actually a wonderful therapy, whether it's psilocybin, especially, I think psilocybin, mushrooms.
Mhm.
Not for me. I know it's 100% not for me. But I think you need to, because you need if you're going to use a a psychedelic or if you're going to use plant medicine, you need to have a certain kind of support, spiritual support that you've already walked a lot of the journey to that door. You know what I mean? Because you are opening a door. And I'm not, and that's still not everyone. So, because I've had a few clients who did ayahuasca or they did some kind of plant medicine. And then after the experience, they actually became extremely depressed because they didn't know how to maintain access to that because their journey hadn't taken them up to that door. It was like they got a cheat code. And now they're depressed because they can't find that realm again. They don't know how to integrate it into their life. Other people don't have that, of course. And then I think there are people like maybe you and me who are just like, the body is like, no, the frequency that we carry, our home frequency, does not resonate with those, with that kind of plant. And that, that's, so I mean, yeah, that's what I think about it. It's what I've observed, I would say. And now for these messages. Creation of the outside world really does start inside. You can feel better and receive more. Miraculous shifts happen when you align your inner world with your higher self and your soul blueprint. My clients report immediate and long-lasting results of the inner and outer world. I channel guidance and energy transmissions from your higher self and spirit team. As you resonate with the transmission, change occurs. In sessions and coaching, mentoring, I use my abilities of empathic channeling, hypno-healing, quantum resonance healing, as well as spiritual counseling, neurolinguistic programming, and so much more. Check out my calendar for my session work and my coaching and mentoring. I would love to work in your beautiful energy.
Well, I completely agree with you. In fact, the year before this experience, I had an ayahuasca experience in the jungles in Peru, working with a shaman in a very supportive environment. And the very first day of connecting with the ayahuasca plant, it was rather tumultuous for me. I didn't vomit like a lot of people do. But I had some energy that was stuck in my pineal gland, my sixth chakra, and my head was going to crack open. They prayed over me for a couple hours trying to release the energetic block. And that's where I feel like when you say that people come back and they're depressed after your journey, is because there's some energy that's blocked and stuck. And that's exactly what happened to me after the near-death experience. But back to the shaman, yeah, they prayed on me and worked on me. And what I actually saw was like this spiral of gray smoke coming out of my pineal gland, a sixth chakra. And I could see exactly who it was. It was a spiritual teacher that I had been working with in San Diego.
And that was the actual block, you mean?
Yes, that was a big part of the block to my own spiritual gifts, because his energy was literally plugged into my psychic abilities, my sixth chakra. And he was using my superpower to advance and to amplify his, which, I mean, when you have the experience, and it literally blew my mind, but it was so real. And I learned so much more from that experience myself. Now, after that, the following day is when I actually saw myself coming through a portal. It was a diamond-shaped pattern, and they told me it was a stargate. And that's when
I've been working with I laughed because I've been working with a Stargate lately, and but go ahead. I just had to laugh.
No, isn't it great?
Acknowledge the synchronicity.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and the information I had at that moment was that I came to Earth as a star seed, and it was an opening, and it was at the early stages of Egypt, and that was the information that told me, okay, next trip, I have to go to Egypt. That was my next step in the journey. What was interesting is after that experience, I cried for 2 days.
Which one, with the ayahuasca?
After the ayahuasca, with me coming through as a stargate, because the stargate closed behind me, and I felt my family had left me behind. And my star seed lineage had really, I knew later that it was an agreement
Yeah.
that I made, that I would come here. And yes, the Stargate would close. Like there's no going back now. Your soul's here incarnated, and you're
Yeah.
embarking on that journey to, evolve and to hold the vibration and remembering who you truly are on the journey. But that
Yeah.
was heavy. That was really, it took me some time to process through that, to validate myself. And it still hasn't been an easy journey of recognizing, the ego can be, you know boosted by saying, okay, I'm a starseed, big freaking deal, you gotta
Yes.
walk.
And now you're a human. So it's like, that's
Yeah.
actually the point. I know it is. And there is, you do see that, if we can say, with the younger folks, and I don't necessarily even mean younger in age. I mean, maybe newer on their journey, but yeah, where the ego is sort of, and I mean, honestly, the ego can try and, does always try to own things, and it tries to own your spiritual journey over and over again. Don't you see? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
and so it's
Yeah.
like starseed, perfect. I'm special. I don't have to do anything, or I have to,
No.
whatever,
Yeah.
But the fact is that having the information really is meant to motivate us to continue to do this part of the journey. You know what I mean? Like this, yes, maybe we have starseed origins, and we have different kinds of futures as well, but this is the point. This is the purpose of the soul at this time. 100% human, as well as other things. But you know what I mean? Like that's the point of perspective for the soul, right?
Yeah, and falling into this state of amnesia, to
Yeah.
remember the journey, to remember why we've come here, to remember this frequency. In my near-death experience, it was like I stepped into a quantum field of love. And
Yeah.
well, it permeates absolutely everything. Now, that's great storytelling, and it's great because so many people are copy and pasting from other people's, experience, right? But it's another thing when you plug into it and feel it and resonate, and
Yeah.
words don't quantify it. Words can't explain it.
Yeah.
And I forget myself because I am human, right? I
Yeah.
want to remember, of course I do. And there's moments of it where it's stronger than others.
Hmm.
Like when I'm able to get to that completely neutral zone and quiet my system and plug back in, I can easily access it, but it's not without, you know,
The
faltering.
challenge, yeah,
No, it's incredible challenge.
the ego is, I guess that's really what we're here to do. Well, first of all, the ego is trying to tell us that something else is more special, when in fact that quantum field of love that permeates would say that this human experience, like, it's humbling us to realize that the human experience is as spectacular as all of the other experiences, of course. And like, that's the remembering is, I think maybe there were times where we didn't have times, as in other lives, where the ego wasn't as strong a pull on us, but the challenge pushing against and remembering in spite of the ego is going to be such an amazing expansion, you know.
Yeah, and I think with the awakening that's occurring on the planet now and the frequencies shifting, I
Yeah.
mean, probably you're experiencing the same thing. There's some ebbs and flows, and it feels pretty shaky at times, and there is no manual, right?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I just, with all my work and all my effort, is to help people to get grounded.
Uh-huh.
And even in this wonderment of all of where we can go and how we can explore being out of the body, I think the biggest challenge is for us to be present and to
Yeah.
be grounded and be turned on. Have,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean, turned
I
on,
know what you mean. Yeah. Uh-huh.
light, our light shining and our
Yeah.
awareness sharp and tuned into the subtleties that are
Yeah.
shifting. That's becoming the biggest challenge right now.
Yes, that's so much. The subtleties, it has a lot to do with the fact that we have so much artificial frequency coming at us all the time. I mean, because we're in the information age, and it's so much more than that. It is really, and I've made videos and podcasts about this. It's like the fourth dimension is starting to leak into and blend with the third, so that everybody's kind of seeing paper dolls and they can't tell the difference. And but but those artificial frequencies, they're not the home frequencies, and they're not the frequencies of nature, like Gaia resonance or galactic or source resonance, whatever, all of that. So it's interesting, there is a mass awakening, but there's also kind of a pushback on it in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, I
It's
call it a big
paradox.
construction project.
Yeah.
And when you're constructing something, there's a big mess in between.
Mm. Pardon our
Yeah,
dust.
yeah, pardon our dust, we're into construction, and we could change the plans tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so there's a new, yeah. I reflect on a point in time. It was in 2009. I was in Egypt on one of my many journeys. I've been back about 12 times now. And this year will be lucky 13.
Mhm.
Um, I was meditating on the balcony one day, and I wanted to know what this great awakening that everybody was talking about, what does it really mean? There's a lot of great books and explanations written, but for me, what did that mean?
Mhm.
And my guides appeared and said to me, imagine today you're a caterpillar,
Yeah.
and tomorrow you're a butterfly. And
Mhm.
beware, there will be many charlatans among you.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, as just to jump off what you just said about all of this noise and incredible work that many people are doing, and then there's a lot of distractions of
Mhm.
people that are just looking at this field or um, aspect to cash in.
It's
And
true. Yeah.
and it's fake, and then you get what you pay for, right? And then that becomes the
Yeah.
journey and the lesson.
But what's interesting I notice is that there's really nothing new under the sun, that the charlatans there that is some, I would say some of the people that we would say are charlatans, some of them actually don't realize that they're,
Right.
what they're onto. And they've just kind of moved into an ego 2.0. And then some people I think very, very much know it and are just taking advantage of it, sort of like it's like if you think about all of the religious tropes where there's been a millenarianism or there's some kind of like end time state, there are also prosperity preachers, and you know what I mean? Like
Law of
there's
attraction
nothing
is a big
new.
one. Yeah.
Like there's nothing new. It's the same tropes, but it's weird because it's got a different outfit and people aren't picking up on the fact that it's the exact, we haven't come up with any new tricky tools. They're all the same old tricky tools. I mean, like fundamentalism is at an all-time high, and it's not just in the church. It's people saying us versus them. Well, we've all decided that this is the way, and so definitely the them are this, and it's witch hunting and it's McCarthyism. I mean, I'm on a thing now, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get
there's
it.
nothing new.
Well, and it is about this sense of duality, right? It's either
Mhm.
right or wrong, good
Yes.
or bad.
Black and white thinking.
And
That's
that is shifting. And that's where we got to
mm,
get to that completely neutral zone
yeah.
of, well, what if black is really white? And what
Mhm.
if it's neither?
Yeah.
And being open to exploring. When I started my journey, well, I didn't like intend on it, but it's like you don't just say, okay, today I'm going to wake up, it's not
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it sort of creeps in on you. But when that started happening, I didn't know where it was headed. I didn't know, but I started to relax. Well, what if what I'm seeing is even though it's contradicting what I was taught, well, what if it's true?
Mhm.
What if what I'm sensing, we can talk about even some political things. Well, what if what they're saying is not the reality?
Yeah.
So I just started questioning a lot
Yeah.
and listening, listening, listening.
Mhm. This is so amazing. The thing about an NDE or an astral projection and everything is that it brings some kind of certainty back because it's a real spiritual experience. You know what I mean? Like that body, you are able to identify it as realistically as we can identify with this physical body, and so it triggered that awakening for you in a whole different way. And how have you been since then? And once you got past the paper doll stage, thank goodness,
Well,
what have you been doing to help people?
yeah, well, that's what I started 22 years ago, is
Mhm.
guiding people to manage their energy system.
Yeah.
which is understanding the chakras and clearing away those hidden invisible blocks that we can't find or see or know they're there. And as we do that, we gently unfold or begin to lighten up, pun
Yeah.
intended, and explore our spiritual gifts, because they just start getting turned on. And the biggest work, I think, is ultimately just clearing away what we are not. And in my new book,
Yeah.
I'm just finishing up with that, and the ebook version is on my website, but it's the
Okay.
Essential Guide to Spiritual Awakening.
Yeah.
Is we are waking up to what we are not and reconnecting with what we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the simplest thing I can say is we have super psychic spiritual abilities that want to be guiding us, showing us. And I think there's going to be way more spiritual abilities than we've already identified. Like,
Yes.
okay, walking through walls, or
Yeah. Telekinesis.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, I
I
really
know.
am excited. I'm so excited for it, because and the other thing is, people need teachers like you and I and many others to help them understand that they're not losing their mind.
It is grounding, like you said. It's about grounding. It's like, no, this is normal. This is okay. This is natural. And sure, it's like it's special because every flake of snow is special and unique, but at the same time, it's normal, you know? And so it does require grounding while ascending, I guess, at the same time, you know?
Being able to
It,
adjust, and that with that frequency, as they
mhm,
both can dance,
mhm. Yes.
symbiotically.
So you have your book, and then there is the you do a chakra. Is it like group, or do you do
No,
individual
well,
services? How do you work?
the way I've been working is I work one on one. So
Hmm.
this mentoring program is partly online, and then partly I go in weekly to check, sort of give you an energetic, refresh. So
Yes.
a lot of times when we're on our journey, we're not realizing that we'll only reach a certain threshold until somebody helps us release what we can't see or access.
Hmm.
And so it's like a refinement each
Yeah.
week that I work with the person one on one.
Yeah.
So it is individual. It's a very highly specialized, process, because
Yeah.
I believe each of our journeys is so unique,
Hmm.
and our history is so unique.
Right.
So that's the way I work. But I'm really excited that the Egypt trip is coming. You don't have to have a near-death experience. In fact, it's preferable.
It's
we
preferable.
that you don't. Yeah, no, but it will, for people that are already on their journey and are awakening to a higher version of where they're at, or to access, or just curious. I mean, it's just mind-blowing.
Wow. What amazing work. This has been so fun. I could talk to you for forever. Really, this is very exciting. And so you have a lot of offers that were put in the description. And so as we're wrapping up here, I just want to see if you have a sense of like where we're going. There's a mass awakening, there's pushback on it. The black and white thinking is having to get neutralized, and there are people who are, I mean, there's a feeling, different perspectives about there's going to be a big change in 7 to 10 years, or in 2027, a new shift. We're going to change background frequency. Have you been getting any of those prophetic kinds of senses about what's happening, whether on a timeline or not? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm just reflecting back on a channeled message I got from the Arcturians,
Great.
and I just keep seeing gears shifting. I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing shifting gears, and being able to, it's like being in a gear within a gear. And so
Yeah.
at this time, I'm seeing so much, ultimately, interdimensionally, that's affecting us, that we haven't really been able to internalize, or even logically interpret.
Yeah.
It's just really beyond my words at this time.
Right.
But I think again, I just reiterate the fact that to be grounded and
Yeah.
begin letting go gently of what we are not. And we don't know what that is, but we have to, safely and proactively let go of programming. And
Uh-huh.
so as we do that, more of those gears can help us sort
Yeah.
of negotiate the next level.
Love it. Wow, this has been so great, Amirah. I really appreciate, the depth of wisdom, the groundedness. It's so important, and just feels right. It just feels right, right? To be grounded. It feels
It's yummy. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just real. It's like present time connections and downloads and
Mhm. Yeah.
receptivity. I think that's the challenge, is being able to tune in and stay grounded, make things
Yeah.
practical and real for us. So thank
How
you.
does one today, if you want to think of something like, can you give a tip to someone to, avoid having an NDE in order to, what is something we can do that's sustainable, and start to work with that groundedness and that ascension process at the same time?
Well, one of my students recently explained that everywhere he goes throughout the day, his mindfulness of practice is attaching a grounding cord to the base of his spine.
Yeah.
So that whatever comes down the pike, whether it's a news flash or a new announcement or an unexpected event, that he has a way to channel that energy, to still be present and be
Mhm.
receptive, but to let what is causing resistance flow away.
Oh,
So we
yeah.
walk
Good
around
stuff.
imagining we've got a USB plug, you know,
Mhm.
connected to our base of our spine, to the center of the
Yes.
earth that just follows us. And I find that fun, and
Mhm.
it's playful, and it just shifts our focus very quickly.
It also restores the connection with our mother Gaia, trusting that she's going to
Absolutely.
take away, compost, send to the light, disintegrate and reintegrate for us. And so I think that's really beautiful. I use the grounding cord every day, at least in the morning, but I do think about it many times a day as well. Yes,
Yeah,
wonderful.
and we got to keep refreshing, right? Like
Mhm.
you have to refresh your screen. Sometimes you think you're grounded, but you've been knocked off course by something. And it could
Yes.
be just energy. It's not something you did or didn't do.
Right. Sometimes we just lighten up, like you say. You don't need to dissect it. Sometimes the best thing to
Yeah,
do is just lighten
stop
up.
already. Stop
Stop it.
dissecting. We make me nuts.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Thank you
Okay.
so much for that. And thank you for being on. You're just really amazing. Thanks for doing the work that you're doing.
Thank you, sweetie. You're doing amazing light work yourself.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you for holding the line.
yes. Amen. I hope you are as inspired as I am right now, both to continue that remembering of all it is that we are, our whole self, our whole spiritual self, the intergalactic and interdimensional connections, as well as the interdimensional connection to our own earth, to our bodies, to this wonderful, beautiful journey and experience. I truly do. Personally, it's how it's how I'm calibrated. I see just as much magic in the earth experience, in connecting telepathically and physically in all of the different ways with this earth and her creatures, as well as much as I do with, shooting through the stars, as we talked about. Really, to me, they're one and the same. Maybe it's paradoxical, but I think when we get close to paradox, we are close to God. Okay. And that's what I have for you from this episode of the Charmed Life podcast. I hope to hear from you sometime in the comments or in a review. And with that, thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.